Nobody should accept you for how you are, who you are, how you are right now, because if you are improving, you don't accept yourself how you are right now. And why would you? Why would you not be chasing who you're going to become 5 years from now?
Welcome to Empowered Homefront Podcast, where we talk about health, wealth, relationships, and let's not forget about the most important one, and that is faith. Because Eric believes we've all been lied. Eric believes
Eric believes. I don't believe. I'm just showing up to listen, dude. I don't believe this bullshit.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the co-host version of trying to give the intro, but welcome to Empowered Homefront Podcast, everybody, where we talk about health, wealth, relationships, and let's not forget about the most important one, that is faith, because I believe, and Eric believes, we've all been lied to, and we're going to skill stack our way all the way to success, and we're going to take you on this journey with us. So, Eric, what's up, man? It's like I talked to you on the phone, but I haven't seen you in a week. So what's going on?
Nothing, man. Just getting over your intro.
Yeah. Try to bring the energy. Did it
Bring
work?
the energy. All right.
I don't know, man. I'm a goofy dude, so who knows?
All right. Yeah, man. So what's on the agenda for us to talk about today?
Okay, so listeners, if you've been here, you've stuck around these last 14, 15, 16 episodes we got, Eric mentioned way back, when I mean way back, maybe like 4 episodes ago, about something called this White Flamingo syndrome. I Googled it. I tried doing my research for this one to bring you guys the best questions I could give Eric to prompt this conversation. But guess what? I couldn't find anything on it. So I don't know if this came from one of Eric's mentors, or if it came from somebody he just personally knows and they're coining this term. So, Eric, take us on this journey.
Dude, you want to know about the White Flamingo, huh?
Because I only know pink flamingos.
All right, so all credit goes to McCall Jones. I jumped in on her program she does this cool thing with charisma, and it, like, when we talk about charisma, a lot of it has to do with understanding yourself a little bit more. So, if you're interested in that thing, like, I highly recommend, like, just jumping in on her program. It's definitely helped me understand, like, bring more clarity. But through it, she explained this white flamingo theory, and this hit me like a sack of bricks, dude. Like, it completely made everything make so much sense after I started understanding what it exactly was and how it affected me in environments. So, first, you can Google ugly duckling syndrome. That actually exists, right? So you can Google ugly duckling syndrome, which is essentially saying a kid grows up ugly, and then whenever they are an adult, all of a sudden they're pretty or handsome, right? And they start getting all this other attention, and it's the ugly duckling syndrome. But whatever the ugly duckling syndrome is, the white flamingo syndrome is not that, but it definitely is in the same category. So, like, McCall has her own story to, like, kind of explain this, but I've got mine too, and I'm gonna share my story with this. So, white flamingo. Flamingos, we all know them as pink, right? So the reason they're pink is because as they grow up, they start eating the same thing everybody else eats: shrimp and algae. And then that turns them into a pink bird. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever they're born, whenever they're learning their way and they're trying to figure some stuff out, they're white or gray. And everybody around that bird is trying to get them to be like them, trying to get them to fit in, to go their way, to do things their way. Their mom and dad is saying, hey, this is what you eat. And, imagine the white flamingo saying, hey, I don't want to eat shrimp and algae. Instead, I want to eat this, I don't know, bug over here, right? And parents like, nope, can't do that because now you're weird. You're different. and they start pointing this finger at the bird. And the white flamingo, if you take that concept and you bring it into what we hear and see all the time, for me, I grew up small town, southern accent, like super thick accent. Like however you hear my accent now, it's improved like a lot, right? So, but you can hear Lori's accent if you listen to some of those episodes. She still has her accent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she has not been in other environments like I have. And environments absolutely affect us. Either we realize it and we acknowledge the effects, or we don't, and all of a sudden we have issues, right? So this white flamingo effect, that's what I'm talking about, right? As I explain this, the concept is acknowledging how your environment and the people you surround yourself with affects you as a person, how you act, how you respond, how you do things. So whenever I whenever me and Lori left and we went and did the Air Force thing, all of a sudden, dude, everybody and their mother was making fun of me because of my accent. They're like, "Oh, you sound just like Boomhire," and I still get called Boomhire from some friends, right? And like, what you got something to say about Boomhire?
Hell no, sit
Down,
down.
down, down, down. And because of that, I was different. Not only was I different, everybody else was the same, so that made me stand out like a sore thumb. Which it brings attention. It's just a question of if that attention is good or if it's bad. You don't really, can you make sense of that? Because I mean, I enjoy horseplay. Like I enjoy going back and forth with the guys. I'm definitely the guy that takes it too far every once in a while. So like I'm good with it. But at the same time, it doesn't mean being a white flamingo surrounded by a bunch of pink flamingos didn't affect me. Not only that, but whenever I started having ideas and I'm like, hey, the first thing is okay, as soon as I get checked out, I'm applying for the FAA because that's my end goal, right? Is to get a Federal Aviation Administration job, separate from the Air Force, go out and make six figures, and then figure out my next step. Like boom, 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 boom. Tell everybody around me that idea, and they're like, "You can't do that. You can't apply to the FAA until you're, about to separate." And like you hear all kinds of terms. Like I heard 6 months, I heard 12 months, I heard 18 months, I heard not until you get your letter, right? They don't know. They're all full of crap. And this is the white flamingo effect. Okay, because they're just talking out of fear. They're talking out of the unknown. They've never done it before. And because they never done it before, they're going to tell you what they think. But it's not facts. It's not real. It's their opinion. And in my experience, 100% of the time, I can't even say 99, 100% of the time, they were wrong. And I was right because I had a vision. I still have a vision, right? And I will just continue moving. I will continue pushing, and I would never become a pink flamingo. With the white flamingo syndrome, and McCall, like in her training, she definitely puts a different spin on this. But like I'm just explaining this how I understand it and how it affected me. Okay, so this is all my thoughts, but whenever it comes to how you respond in an environment, for instance, I was always told that I was too harsh, too direct, too serious, too goofy, too funny, too big, too working. I work too much, right? And it's all these two things. And Kevin, you even told me this, dude. Like, dude, this isn't how I know you. Like, you're always like this with me. And I'm like, okay. And that is the white flamingo syndrome that we're talking about, right? Like you are part of my white flamingo issue. Lori, my wife, is part of my white flamingo issue. My mom, my dad, all my close friends, my children, they're part of my white flamingo issue. Because whenever somebody around us tells us that we're too something, too little, too big, too serious, too direct, too harsh, too funny, too soft, too weak, whatever those are, it affects us subconsciously or consciously. And whenever you continuously hear these things, now, whenever you get around that person, you start to pull away or push forward. Meaning, Kevin told me that I'm always, and this is true, right? I'm using like the issue that me and you had with this. And I know I haven't even talked to you about this, so this would be interesting in your feedback. But like, you always told me, he's like, dude, like you're not like playful, like you're not, like you're always serious, like you're always working. But it was that was what you saw of me, and because of that, if we was in an environment where like you came over and we're working on the Empowered Homefront board game, right? And like you saw me like in my zone working, and like you got to see different parts of me. Like, was I playful? Was I always serious? What was happening during that time? Like, do you remember?
Uh, yeah. Um, I would say, like, we went there and it was business. Like, we had something we needed to get done, and we were pretty much business, like 90% of the time. But I mean, you smiled like once or twice, and he laughed a few times.
Yeah.
But it was still the Eric that I knew.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I've seen, I've seen more of your playful side when we do our talks off camera before the show, the show before the show,
Yeah.
where we're just goofing around and we say things that we can't say on camera that we, you know, and even at the beginning when I was like, yeah, let me try the intro. And I was like, Eric for believed to be like, like I stumbled on my words. I was like, and you're like goofing around. Like, I've seen you goofy and playful in different environments, but to me, it's always about business. To me, your playfulness and your goofiness is like a quick comic slash sigh of relief where I think you're like, oh man, like I'm being too hard right now. So let me like attempt at being playful. And I think people know you so much as being like serious and
Yeah.
like we're not doing anything until we reach the finish line.
Yeah.
When people see that, including myself, who's known you for gosh, almost 6 years now,
Yep.
it's still weird to me because I'm like,
So the question is though, what environment? So every time we get together, every time we hang out, like you've always, I don't think we ever actually just hung out. For one, like I don't really just hang out anymore. Like I used to when I drank, but like I'm sober, don't participate in that anymore.
we did a
And
couple of times, like we've gone out to like eat,
yeah,
like if that counts as hanging out, but like your family was there. It wasn't just you and me.
yeah,
Um, I would say like depending on the environment you're in, so I've never been around you when you're doing real estate stuff, like except for helping with like fixing the rentals up and everything.
mm-hmm.
But at work, when you're around, and I brought this up too, and I think this is how the White Flamingo thing came up. I talked about that this one guy I knew being a chameleon, and he always changed it. So like me and this guy would always talk like video games in the Air Force because me and him were both like video game nerds. And then this other guy would walk in and then he'd be like, oh, yeah, man, video games are stupid. Like, blah, blah, blah. because he wanted to like that guy to like him. And that was being a chameleon in a bad sense.
Yeah.
And I think
Very,
White
very
Flamingo
bad.
came. And what I'm getting at here is you are more goofy and playful around people you know that you like. So there was people at work where you would just turn your back and be like, I'm not even interacting with this person because they got nothing to say to. I got nothing good to say to them, and they got even worse to say to me.
Yeah.
But then when you and me would work in the tower together, you'd be like, "Are you even paying attention, dummy? Are you going to taxi that guy?
Yeah.
Look, who trained you?" I'm like, "You did," and you're like, "Ho ho ho!" It's a funny joke, like like it was funny at the time. A lot of people don't understand their traffic stuff, so I'm not going to go there. But I think it just depends on who you're around, because you
Yeah.
are more playful with certain people. Like you're not going to be playful with a client on the phone. I don't think
Right.
that you're cold calling or but somebody like McCall with her charisma hacking, the course you're taking, you're put into a position where I think you're forced to be different.
Yeah, which brings me to the next piece, man. Like with this White Flamingo thing, because like what you're talking about is a lot of like it really depends on your environment,
Correct.
and your environment plus the people in your environment dictates how you respond. So,
And
for instance,
I think you feed off of that too. So say you want to go into a situation where you want to be playful, like you, for example. I said that very directly. You rubbing off on me. So you want to go into a situation where you're like, you know what, I'm going to practice this energy, this playful energy that I've been trying to learn to like develop this character or this personality of me that I want to develop, but I never had the chance to, which is what you're doing, I think. And dude, sometimes you get around people, man, and you realize like I can't do that, and then their personality rubs off on you, and then like it's like secondhand smoking. Like you just happen to get that effect, and you're just like, well, I'm miserable today now, like and I think there's
dude,
different
energy is contagious, man.
yeah, I think it's
You
different
know,
levels of the White Flamingo.
I don't, yeah, I mean, sure, right? Like, no matter what, it's always based on our environment, people in it, and how they make us feel.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, like my dad, um, I'm close to my dad. Like I respect my dad. Like we've got a good relationship. I wouldn't even say like we got a bad relationship. I think we got a really good relationship, but that relationship is completely different than the one I have with my mom,
Mm-hmm.
right? But my dad will tell me that I'm too much something a lot, right? He's like, dude, like, you know, you're too this, you're too that, right? Like, I don't even want to talk about it. Like, it's a lot of, you can't do those things because this is the way it needs to be done, which is what parents do. And that's the reason I'm using this analogy because, imagine all these flamingos sitting around and everybody's pink eating shrimp and algae, and you're the white flamingo who's an adult now, and you're still not turning pink. Like they just try to get you to be more like them.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you're not like them, they say you're too goofy. You're not serious enough. You're too serious. All these things. And now, whenever you get in that environment, you start pulling back and you're like, he said I was too serious. So now I'm going to pull back and I'll be less serious. And now I'm going to fill in that with something else. Is it going to be goofiness? Is it going to be playfulness? Is it going to be boring? Right? Like what's going to happen? So, um, like one of the big things with my dad is communicating. Um, and he's one of the things that really started triggering me to start studying and learn how to communicate better. And then obviously like real estate, I got into sales and started understanding sales training, and now I'm studying a lot of psychology. And um, I mean, psychology is so interesting, dude. It's so cool. Body language cues, like all this stuff. But without like nerding out on that stuff, what I'm trying to say is when I talked to my dad, I just wanted to be me. I didn't want to have to sell him. I didn't want to have to. And whenever I talk about selling too, I kind of learned this from like communicating with Lori. Selling is simple. All you got to do to sell is look out for the interest of your client and ask questions to figure out what they truly want and what's truly important to them. And there's an art to that. So if you have a product and you start a conversation, you ask questions to steer the path of that conversation to figure out what they truly want, and then you solve it. Boom, sold, closed. And it's really that simple, but there is an art to it. Like when you have, conversations in a sales dialogue, because you got positioning that's happening. And I want to keep sales training out of this and just like talk about communicating with just regular people, right? So just envision me and my dad walking into a coffee shop, and I start, joking, and this actually happened. Like we went to Tyler's Gymnastics, and we went in to a Starbucks. Even though I hate mentioning that name, yes, I buy Starbucks, and I'm ashamed of it. But like we go into the Starbucks, and dude, immediately like I start, joking around with the woman behind the cash register, right? And we start having this whole conversation, and she starts telling me about this cup that she's bought, and it's camouflaged, and how great it is. And like she starts sharing stuff about her daughter. Like she's just sharing. And then we go over, and, there's strangers waiting on their coffee. I start talking to them, and anyway, my dad, he's standing there, and he just looks at me. He's like, if I did that to somebody back home, they would have got mad. How did you do that? And I'm like, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get asking questions to be curious, because he knows me a certain way. Because whenever I was responding those, even though everybody in that Starbucks loved me, right? Like, I mean, I had like strangers laughing. I had people behind the counter laughing. But my dad, that was weird to him, because he's used to me telling him just like it is, not selling him, not making him laugh, not caring about how he feels. It's just like, dude, this is what I think. Right? He says something, I'm like, no, this is what I think. And that like that's not selling at all. And I think that's whenever I stumbled into like what sales is, it really helped communicating with my own dad, communicating with Lori, communicating with friends, because now I have the skills to not be so serious. And whenever they say, hey, you're too serious, now I can turn that on and turn it off, because I can understand what they mean by that. So this White Flamingo thing, if you feel like you're too much something around people, you can change that. And the first step is acknowledging and defining what they're saying you're too much of, and then figuring out how you want to be around them. Is this making sense?
It does, and I'm having an internal struggle with it. So the first thought I have on it is what you just said. People say you're too much something, because you hear this all the time. Just be yourself. The opinions of others, you can't control
nobody
them.
knows what it's like to be themselves anymore.
I know, and it's a shame.
Yeah.
Everybody, I feel like, is defined by a hashtag now or something,
Yeah.
or whatever's in their bio on Twitter or Instagram, all that. We've mentioned it before. Like, let me complete my train of thought, and then I'll get back to my other point. It's almost like you have to. It's a shame that you can't be yourself around certain people, and that you do have to adapt. And that's what I'm kind of hearing. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, because what I heard was, oh, this person thinks I'm too serious, so I have to dial it down for them. But at the same time, it's like, why should I have to do that? Like, if that's me and I'm not being a jerk, still being honest and authentic and genuine.
Dude, I will share this. Um,
Before you do share that, you know, obviously bring your board up. The other thing I was going to say too is you said people don't know how to act or be themselves or something along those lines. It's I've mentioned it before, and it's the NPC, man.
dude.
Most people are just an NPC, a non-playable character. They're pre-programmed. It's like the more I see it, the more I'm starting to believe we are in a damn simulation.
um, yeah, all of this stuff is so interesting, man. And you said something that I'm sure a lot of people will agree with, but then if someone's looking into this, they will disagree with this. So I'm gonna address this two different ways. One, that square is a little crooked. Um, two, so what you said was it's a shame you can't just be yourself because people are always you're too much this, you're always too much that, or you're too little, you're too much, whatever that is. And they're always trying to get you to eat their shrimp and their algae.
And I have personal life experience about that. That's why like that kind of I don't want to use the word trigger. I hate that word, but it triggered something inside of me like where I was like, ugh, like, you know,
Yeah.
because before I was always the person that got told, "Hey, you're too much this, you're too much that." And I always tried to fit in and just act how people wanted me to act. And not until like the last 4 years did I finally go, "You know what? I can't control people's opinions of me as long as I'm living a genuine, authentic, honest life, then I shouldn't care what other people's opinions of me are. If they're saying I'm too serious, if I'm too funny, if I'm too goofy, oh, you can't take anything serious. Whatever the extremes are of what they think, just like surround yourself around people who you want to be around and that will accept you for who you are type thing. And once I started doing that, like you accept me for who I am. There are skills that you are developing in me that will make me a better person, like work ethic and um, learning how to do things within our SaaS system and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, that's Kevin. He's a goofy dude. Like you've even asked me to bring that personality out. Like like you've asked me to be more me because I feel like sometimes I'm just like beep boop boop, like working like a robot. So I'm still have that little subconscious that's like, hey, be careful how you are.
So this is I mean, I think this is something that resonates with me so much, dude. It's just we're talking a lot about things that I'm actively trying to do right now, and that is just be authentic. I truly want to help people. And I truly want to help people not make the same mistakes that I have. And I truly believe the way to do that is to create Empowered Homefront podcast where we talk about health, wealth, relationships, and faith. And what that means is we talk about stuff that affects our life, struggles that I have personally went through, you personally went through, Lori, our wife, our kids. We're going to have guests on here, high level guests, um, middle class guests, low class guests, right? Because everybody has their own story and their own perspective and their own issues. The thing is though, is what are they doing about it? Because Empowered Homefront is all about movement and it's movement forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
like nobody would ever listen to this show and the messages that I'm saying we're communicating to them, we're saying that doesn't want to learn more. Like it just wouldn't make sense. And I can't imagine. But at the same time, there's people who might come across, a White Flamingo um, show that allows them to do the first stage of learning, which is discover. And they discover for the first time, oh, so and so is making me feel like this because they do. They tell me I'm too much. They tell me I'm not enough. And then the world says, just be yourself. And then at the same time, the world says, you're good enough. everybody should accept you for who you are. Everybody should accept you for how you are. How you respond right now is good enough, Kevin. It's bullshit. I mean, it's absolutely bullshit. Nobody should accept you for how you are, who you are, how you are right now, because if you are improving, you don't accept yourself how you are right now. And why would you? Why would you not be chasing who you're going to become 5 years from now? Dude, I heard this speech from Matthew McConaughey, and it hit me like a sack of bricks, dude. And he's like, somebody asked him, he's on stage, and somebody asked him, he's like, who's your role model? Like, who do you look up to? He goes, you know who I look up to? Myself 10 years from now. And I'm going to like butcher his speech, but he's like, myself 5 years from now. And I'm always looking up and I'm chasing that man. Who am I 5 years from now? Who am I 10 years from now? And whenever I catch up to that man, I'm going to be chasing who I will be 10 years from then, 5 years from then. I'm always improving. And whenever we get told over and over again, you're good enough, people should just accept you for who you are. Dude, like it's BS. Why would they whenever you shouldn't even do that? Instead, and I know that was really harsh and direct, and that's like my, my delivery on that. But, people can take it for what it is, because if you can hear that and then comprehend and understand, okay, I just discovered that I do need to always improve. People shouldn't accept me for who I am. But what does that mean? What do I need to do now? Well, the answer is you need to go to the second step of learning, and that is to learn how to improve on the things you want to improve on. So for me, I want to improve my charisma. So I joined a program, with McCall's thing. I'm actively working on camera. I'm filming more. And what I learned is through my environments, military, federal career with air traffic that's very cutthroat, type A personalities, through these environments and growing up and then, going out and being an entrepreneur, I have become very, very, very direct, because I've learned very quickly, if I wasn't direct, people don't listen to me. They don't follow through with things. And then that causes me to be too harsh on my children, and I don't show them the proper love and the proper care that they need from a father. Because I'm always, you need to do this, you need to do more of this, you need to work out harder, you need to get up in the morning, you need to do this, and it's always what they need to do. And that's what my environment has caused me to do, because that's what I know how to win. Right? Like, I have been winning at life, and I will consistently win at life, even when I lose, because I lose way more than I win, right? Everybody does. But the wins matter, right? Because winning is important to me. I hate to lose. Absolutely hate to lose. But there's a dichotomy. There's a balance. You have to figure out how far left, how far right can we go, and then what's in the middle. And then when you look at yourself, this is what I realize, right? So my own story is, everybody's telling me I'm too harsh, I'm too direct. And for the longest time, I'm like, what's wrong with that? Like, why can't I do this? Because whenever I'm sitting there and I'm in the Air Force, I am in uniform, I am working traffic at the busiest base in the Air Force, which is Nellis Air Force Base. I mean, we push like 300 planes in like 2 hours, right? Like back and forth, like in and out, like massive volume. Whenever I'm performing there, I don't have time to worry about anybody's feelings. If I yell at you and tell you to pass me the strip, if I tell you to call the CI, if I tell you to call the tower, if I tell you to call whatever, you do it. Right? And then after the fact, if you talk to me and you say that I didn't do a good job or whatever, I'm going to look you right in the eye and be like, you do it better, because you can't. But if I back down, I would let my colleagues run over me because I'm in a type A, very aggressive environment as air traffic control, where even if we do a stellar job, if we do the best job absolutely possible, even after we unplug, every one of our friends is going to come up to us and been like, you should have gave that guy 190 instead of 180. You should have done this.
Always.
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 And it's just like, you wasn't there, bro. You couldn't have done it better. And then, you got the people that you respect and they come with you, like the older gentlemen, they would come with you and they would say, hey, I've been there, son. Like, you should have done this. And then you take it, right? But whenever you got people that are on your same peer level, right, and even below you saying, hey, I could have done it better, I'm like, nothing bad happened. Like, what could you have done better? Everybody got home. It was efficient. It was quick. It was timely. Like, what could you have done better? So my point is like these environments molded me being very direct. But that doesn't mean that my wife, my dad, you should accept me being so harsh and so direct all the time. Because that's not fair to you. And if I believe that you should just accept me for who I am, then that's a lonely world. I mean, that's my wife always living up under the pressure that I'm applying to her. That's my children always living up under that harsh pressure. Oh, daddy's going to snap at me. He's just going to tell me that I should have done better. That ain't right. And I had to learn that. I'm not good enough. They shouldn't accept me for who I am and how I am. Instead, I should do self-reflection. I should learn better ways to communicate, better ways to help people, help my own family, help you. And I should pour into myself. That way I become better because I will never be good enough. And that's okay because I know I'm better than yesterday because I learned something yesterday. And
Okay.
today,
You answered my question. I was going to say, not be telling yourself constantly you're not good enough is a very dark place.
It's the view of constant growth.
I know that you answered my question because I do that same thing. And I brought this up in a different way. If you're 1% better today than you were yesterday, then you're growing.
That's right. Yep. So let me show you this really quick because this right here, I found this book.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I do want to apologize to everybody that's watching this on YouTube or wherever you're watching it. This man is not Picasso. He's not Van Gogh. So please, please excuse his artistry and his the first layer of the Leaning Tower of Pisa he just drew here. Carry on.
Right. So let's talk about some balance, right? You can find this book. I highly recommend it. It's called Cues, Cues, by Vanessa Edwards, I think. Anyway, she talks about this, and this is a charisma book, right? So let's define what charisma is. Charisma is how well someone likes you and also trusts you. There's two parts to being charismatic, right? There's two part, like business. They say like, business people only do business with people they like and trust, which is so true. Mm-hmm. That's charisma. It's charismatic. So I'm gonna give some examples, and I'm gonna like make fun of myself during this, but like, she calls this part down here the danger zone. Okay. The danger zone. Did I spell danger right?
Yes. Don't worry, I'm the grammar Nazi here.
Never know, dude. English, first, second, and third language. So she calls this the danger zone. You do not want to be in the danger zone. Okay, so let's just go ahead and like just say we're not in the danger zone at all. All right, this is the charisma zone. See if I spell charisma right.
What kind of S is that?
Dude. I dropped my pen. It's not writing right. There you go. Charisma. Right. So this is the charisma zone. That's where everybody's trying to get to. And you really want to be in the charisma zone. Now you got to have a formula. Okay. So let's talk about you. This is my opinion, observation from you, but you're very warm.
Oh, thanks. It's because I weigh more than I should.
Warming personalities is very likable, right? Like you, I don't know. I mean, I would classify you as warm, dude. I would classify you way more as warm with the comparison of me and you, right? You're far more warm than I am. You care, or you communicate how you care far more than I do.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm all the way down here and I'm all about competent. Is that competent?
That's compent, but people will understand.
How do you spell competent?
COMP, compet. You just have to add a TE in front of the N. Competent.
Like that?
Competent. TENT. Competent.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So everybody should laugh at this because I'm talking about how I'm competent, but I can't spell it.
This does not get edited out. I'm not.
No, it shouldn't, because like I did that on purpose, right? Because like that's a way that I can come off as more warm.
Is that how you compent? I'm still laughing at this spell. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to show like a real life example here.
Yeah.
Like,
I understand.
You understand. All right. Well, maybe I can explain this a little bit better, but spelling competent, I misspelled it, right? And then I'm saying, hey, is that how you spell it? And I'm asking Kevin, like, hey, help me out here. Well, now that allows him to come down a little bit into the competent zone. And now he becomes more charismatic with me because he's showing competence. And then with me down here, if I am always right, if I am always telling you exactly what to do, if I'm always factual, well, I'm way down here. And this area down here, nobody enjoys being around that person. And you'll hear this a lot. It's just like, show your failures, show where you are not successful at, but also show your successes. So if you only show your failures, you're over here in the danger zone. Nobody wants to follow or listen to an incompetent person that's always failing.
Some would say that you took the highway to the danger zone.
So, and then you got the warm, right? So the warm zone, well, now you have no competence. Everybody loves being around you, but you couldn't solve a puzzle, right? Like, you're not competent. You're fun being around. You're likable. You bring joy to people, but I wouldn't call you to solve a problem. I wouldn't call you and ask you for help. So, the life of the party, very warm. Very warm. Everybody loves being around the life of the party. But if you're in trouble, who are you going to call? Are you going to call the life of the party, or are you going to call the really warm person down here in the competent zone?
Is that a question for me? I'm probably going to call a competent person.
I think that's obvious, but yeah, you can answer the question, right?
Yeah.
So, the challenge is finding the balance. And that's the reason I wanted to kind of show this with the White Flamingo thing, because like it brings it all into light to me. And it's helped me so much because now I can pick and choose and I'm working on this, right? So if anybody sees, hopefully from this episode to 20, 40 more episodes, you can see a evolution of a person who is more warm, who is more caring. And there's tales, right? So in the book of Q's, this was super interesting. She talks about the resting bitch face. So whenever you see somebody and they look like they're so mad, it's because you are registering. She calls it 6 or more emotions on their face that are negative, like a downward tilt mouth, right? Eyes that are kind of tilted down a little bit, right? And it looks like they're always upset, but that's just their face relaxed. Like, dude, I thought it was so interesting. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know so many people are like that.
I was trying to do it right there, so I was like,
but like, I think I might have a little bit of that too, right? Because like whenever I'm in deep thought, like you'll tell me, I'm like, dude, you're so serious. I'm like,
well, I found that picture on the Google Drive the other day when we were interacting, coming up with the framework for the EHF board game. And dude, no lie. Hold on a second. This was you.
You can't do it.
and like I was like, oh, there's my man Eric.
Dude.
Yeah, you were in the zone though. So well, that's the thing too, is I know you pretty well over these last handful of years. So I know when you're not being a jerk and when you're actually just like deep in thought. But I get what you're saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's something like if I accepted myself for how I am or who I am, and then I expected you to think, to accept myself, if I expected you to accept me on how I am, how is that okay? Like, I don't understand that. But we do. We live in a world where you're supposed to be enough. Why are you enough? Like, you graduated high school, you graduated college, and that's the last time you read a book? That's the last time you actually educated yourself? Why? Why would you not read? Why would you not learn something else?
I think where it came from is if you look back at it, trends, they go like this, like look at Target or closer, like the stuff we wore when we were kids is coming back. Like, so what I think is before this generation, this trend we're going through now of,
this is my face relaxed.
Yeah, I know. I never. I do enjoy when you smile though. Like you do have a very contagious smile.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, I wish you practiced.
We're not hooking up, bro.
I wish you practiced it more.
I'm married.
That's fine. So am I. What we do on the side, they just never have to know. My wife always does ask, "What do you guys even talk about?" Well, baby, if you're listening, this is it. Romance. But yeah, I think there was a time where before this trend, this generation of like, you are good enough, like just people accept you for who you are all the time. I think before it was, you'll never be good enough. And I think when you throw that in there, like the never thing, you'll never be good enough. I think I think both sides are very damaging. But when people get that, people are like, okay, well, nobody's gonna, and then with the, you'll never be good enough. Nobody ever told you how to be good enough. And I think at the time with technology is a very good thing. And I think we have a lot of infinite amount of tools now for when someone says you'll never be good enough. It's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about this. Why are you saying that? And then you can go and actually, people who actually want to discover, they can follow through with the learn, execute, replicate. And I think we're at a day and age now where I think we need to bring back not the you're never good enough or you're not good enough. I think it should be more of a, hey, you're not good enough in this area. Let's go ahead and address it type thing. And I think that's what you're getting at. Yeah. Because when I said that before, when I said, yeah, I was trying to fit in and do what other people wanted, and I was pink flamingoing the whole time for a lot of my life. it came to the point where it was like people should just accept me for me. And I still believe that part when it comes to who you are, if you are um authentic, genuine, and honest, because what we're talking about is behavioral traits, I think, because being too serious is a behavioral trait. There's a difference between personality and behavioral traits. And I think who you are personality wise, if you're being authentic, genuine, and honest, then yeah, I truly, truly believe that, yeah, you are good enough.
What's
But
the
when
difference
you look,
between behavioral and personality traits?
behaviors, I think, take or require action.
Personality doesn't.
Yeah, personality, I think, is just who you are, as just who you are naturally.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I would agree with that completely, because I know for a fact that you can change who you are.
I think so. You can change who you are, but I think it's more behavioral things that you change. Like, why is he behaving that way? Yeah, you can change it, but like naturally, like I don't think things like love are behavioral. I think that's like a natural thing that happens. Like you are naturally a loving person. I don't think you're behaviorally a loving
I
person, because
think
then
you can become a more loving person.
I think that is true too. But
Yeah,
I don't.
I mean, I know it's true, right? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't think personality or behavioral is set in stone, and that's where I'm talking about. Like, you shouldn't accept yourself for who you are, and then you shouldn't expect other people to accept yourself who you are. So it's
I
like,
think
with kids, man. Like, let's talk about kids for a second. Like, me and Lori's talking about this a lot nowadays, man. And like, our kids, obviously, every parent out there, like, you should all think that your kid is extraordinary, like you should. And also, you should know and understand that your kid is a product of everything you feed them. The food you feed them, the environment that you feed them in, like the hobbies, the activities that you allow them to do, they're a product of all of that. So if you don't like the way your kid acts, you need to do a little bit of reflection and inspect that and figure out what you need to correct. But if you just accept it, like these parents, dude, just let kids be kids. What does that mean? Like, that's my first question for them. Like, what do you mean let kids be kids?
I think most people just mean it innocently, like, yeah, let them play and let them get dirty and stuff like that. But I don't think people actually think about it and define it for themselves. I
Well,
think
let's
it's
talk
just
about that. So let kids be kids, because this is a conversation that I've had multiple times. And
yeah.
that's the answer they say. They say, well,
Hmm.
I just want them to enjoy their childhood. They've
Hmm.
got their entire life to work.
Oh no, I disagree with that part.
What, did they have their entire life to work?
Yeah, I disagree with that. Like, because you still have to set yourself up for later, and you still, as a parent, want to teach them skills and values that they can take later on in life. But I still believe that this is where what I'm getting at is my kid isn't going to be sitting inside at a desk at attention and not be able to go outside and get dirty and play in the grass. Like there's different times and places for things,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to be a militant father to my son.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. And I think most people mean that. They just don't know how to explain it because they've never actually thought about it. It's just something that they've heard and they're repeating and regurgitating.
Yeah.
And I think what we're getting at here, that one of the main things with this pink flamingo, white flamingo thing is it has to do a lot with peer pressure of just giving in. And there's a video that I've immediately, what you brought up kids. So you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is? He's the black dude. He's the science guy where he's always talking about space and astrophysics. If you saw him, you would know who he is. And he talks about how all kids are born scientists because all kids are all about exploration and discovering.
Yeah.
And every parent, a lot of parents, I want to say a lot of parents, and this is from my experience as a brand new dad, is a lot of people are like, oh, don't let them get hurt. Don't let them do that. They'll get messy. It's like, all right, well, I think that's babying, no pun
Dude,
intended.
that's a topic for another show, dude. I can go deep on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, let me wrap it up real quick with my point. He talks about how your kid must break the egg. And he's like, a kid gets in the fridge and grabs an egg. It's like, oh, well, don't let them. Don't let them break the egg. Don't let them. 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 don't let them touch that. He's going to break it and be messy. It's like, no, let him do that, because then he's going to see that something hard turns into something liquidy. And then when you cook that liquid goop that's nasty, you can eat it. And oh, by the way, it's going to go from clear to white. So it's like, as a parent, my goal as a dad is to let my kid discover and not be like what those other kids are doing, like stuck inside on video game consoles all the time.
Yeah. But
You
see, you
know,
identified that as something wrong,
I
right?
did it to me is personally wrong.
Well,
And I
see,
don't want
to
that.
me, there's a dichotomy there. There's a balance. My kids play video games, you
Yeah,
know?
sure, but they're not glued to it.
It's what I teach them, right? So, with the White Flamingo, to keep this on topic, like if I tell my kid they're playing videos too much, hey, you're just playing video games too much. You're just nobody likes a gamer. Like, don't do that. Well, that's going to cause them to either pull away from me or come to me. But if I can address that and say, hey, man, this is what happens whenever you play video games too much, and I just don't want that for you. So because of that, we're going to, restrict the video games for a little bit. Like, just go outside and play, or go in your bedroom and play. Like we really want you to do this. Is that
Mm-hmm.
okay? And now we give them an option, and the exact same thing happens. They play video games way less, but they also are not hearing me say, "Hey, you're doing this too much." Right? And that's the White Flamingo in a nutshell, because I'm accomplishing the exact same thing, but I'm giving them the tools and the resources in order to understand where they should be. That way they can start monitoring their own output towards that thing. And this absolutely works. Like I've done it with all three of my kids. That concept right there absolutely works raising kids.
Giving
You
them the
have
option.
to, not giving them the option. That's not what I'm saying. I'm telling that what I'm explaining to you is I'm educating my kids on how to make the choice that I believe is the better choice.
Mm.
This is sales. All right. That's sales 101. All right. You can look at it however you want to, but learning how to communicate at a high level is so powerful, right? Like we homeschool. Dude, I don't care anything about my kids learning English, being able to spell, all this stuff. Like that's not important to me at all. The only thing's important to me is, do I raise them where they can connect with other human beings and communicate their thoughts, their ideas very, very well. Now, in order to do that, you have to learn a little bit of English. You have to learn a little bit of math. You got to learn science, right? In order to communicate very well, you still need all those other subjects. But now there's a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whenever my kid, like Kaylee, I just had this talk with her, she's learning percentages, and she's, you know, it was, she had a math problem. It was about increase in percentage. And I was like, oh, that's so important. She's like, why is that so important, Daddy? I was like, because if you would like your business to grow by 10%, you need to figure out how to do that math. Or if you would like to make 10% more of your products, like, she's always making stuff out of like toilet paper rolls and stuff like that. And I'm like, like, dude, no joke, she made like these little couches and like little chairs out of cardboard, and it was toilet paper rolls that she cut and then rolled them all up, and like, yeah, like, and they look just like a little couch. Like you could paint them and decorate them, and like you would buy it.
Mm.
Like she's really good. She's really creative at making stuff out of toilet paper. But my point is we the White Flamingo thing, this whole show I've been talking about how it affects us. The last thing I want to leave the audience with is we also have to be aware of how we White Flamingo other people. That
Mm.
was my biggest aha from uncovering this, because I realized that I was White Flamingoing my wife, my children, the people who are close to me. And I have to figure out a better way to communicate. Therefore, I can't settle. I can't accept myself for how I am. When my dad says that I'm too direct and I'm too harsh, and he just wishes that I would not be so abrasive towards him. Plenty of years, majority of my life, I lived with, dude, stop being such a wuss. Like, you're so sensitive. Like, let's just be men. I didn't get that from my dad. I get that from my environment. But then I came back, he white flamingoed me, and instead of hearing it and being, let me pull this back up because this is something that's really hitting home. If I am down here and I am all in this competent zone, when I communicate how I think about things, how I process things, I am very much, how do I get this done? What result am I trying to get? A very warm person is very much about inspiration, the story behind it, the emotions behind it. And where we really want to be is in the in the charisma zone, which is a balance of the two. There's some situations where we will need to be more competent and lower on the charisma zone of warmth. There's other situations where we need to be far less competent and higher on the charisma zone with warmth. Did I just say that backwards?
No, I understood what you're saying.
Yeah. So, like, we really have to understand this. Like, whenever our wife comes in, as men, we want to fix everything. Very competent.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want competent, they want warm. And as you practice being more warm, understanding different, like even body language, there's warm body language. Like one that I learned is palm out. So if I show you my palms, it's a warmer feeling. It's like, hey, Kevin, tell me more about that. Right? Tell me more about that. I'm showing you my palms, and that means I'm open to hearing what you have to say.
I saw one of those too. As a guy, you probably see him as an Asian man that teaches people how to speak better, public speaking. And he says, whenever someone compliments you, put your hand over your heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. It's like you're
Yeah, it's
grabbing
it's
the plate
little
together.
subtle things, dude. Me and Kaylee's doing this thing, where, dude, like, it's so funny because like it's super cool that my daughter is learning this stuff at a very young age. Like all my kids are, but again, the reason, because I made this mistake, guys. I made the mistake of being very direct and pushing them to be more like me all the time. That's the wrong thing to do. I had to learn and I had to grow and I had to improve my dad's skills and I had to stop white flamingoing them and I had to start figuring out how to influence them for the better. So, but now that turned into the result, which is where I can, like Kaylee just turned 12 in January and we're sitting here having conversations and she's talking to me and she's like, Daddy, you are so big. Like, you're just huge. And she's showing me this body language sign of small. So, whenever I said that, Kevin, and anybody watching this, and I show you my fingers, your brain got really confused. And you're like, what? You know, like it doesn't really register versus me going, Kaylee's telling me a story and she's talking about how fat I am. And she's like, Daddy, you're so big. Right? Like that hits home way harder because now we're learning how to, express ourselves with our body language because our minds give more weight to body language. But also, if I'm always competent, which means I'm not going to show you my palm, I'm not going to raise my eyebrows a lot. So, like Kevin, when you talk, like I'm actively working on this where I want to make sure that you know that I'm interested in what you're saying, you are saying. So I raise my eyebrows for a split second and then I give you a slow nod. And that keeps you talking. But if I wanted to, and that's warm, right? What I'm describing is warmth because I'm a very competent person. So I have to actively practice how to be warmth. That way you feel more comfortable. This is all for you, Kevin, right? I'm doing this for you. I can't accept myself for me. I can't just go, man, I don't need to give Kevin like eyebrow raise and a slow nod. Like, if this dude can't figure out that, I'm interested in what he's saying, like, why should I have to change? Like,
Yeah,
who wants to think that way? And
yeah,
why is that okay?
I had to do that with my wife. Like, she's a person who needs reassurance. Like, she needs to hear certain things. So it's
It
like,
would challenge your perspective.
well, let me finish first. She needs to hear those things because it's how she knows that I'm acknowledging.
But it's not
And
only her, it's everybody.
no, I don't want to say it's everybody. I want to say like the way that, because some people like I can just go, and that like, hey, he's listening, like, because I'm a head nodder, I'm like, yeah, yeah. And then with her, it's like I have to reassure her because she feels a certain way. And before, I was always just like, hey, good job, thanks. Like, it was just like, dude, she even told me in the beginning, she said I used to do this side eye thing, and I used to go, thanks, like that. And I was like, what, really? I do that?
Yeah.
And I changed it. I was like, before, like, I was just like, oh, she doesn't like that because it makes me feel like I don't give a shit. I don't care. So now, like, when
Nobody likes that, Kevin. Nobody likes when you side eye them and you look at them. Nobody likes that. And that's my point. That's what I'm trying to get you to hear. It's not just your wife. By you having someone who's close to you, you are learning how to be a better communicator. But it's not only her. Everything that you do communicating with Erica that works for the positive will work everywhere else. There is no difference.
Hmm.
When you talk to me and you side eye me, like what you're talking about, it's just like, does it bother me? Right? That's the only difference between me and Erica is like, do I actually pay attention, actually care what body language you're giving me?
Mm-hmm.
There is no difference in communication. Like that same message that you give her, you're giving me too when you do those stuff. Right? The same message when I communicate with you, very direct, and I do that with my kids, they're receiving the exact same message. But whenever I communicate something that I need you to hear, which is the reason I communicate directly, and I change my body language, I change my tonality, that way you can hear me, it works. All right. A good leader is a good communicator.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you're talking to your 2-year-old or your 45-year-old boss, right? It doesn't matter. It's all the same. And that's where I'm talking about. Like this whole white flamingo thing, like I get it. People want to be accepted for who they are and all that stuff. That's cool. If you want to be the exact same today as you are when you're on your deathbed, however many years from now, and you want to be the exact same person and you want to influence people, connect with people the exact same way, then continue doing what you're doing today. That's fine. It's fine with me. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt Kevin. It's not going to, Kevin, like if you don't change, it's fine. It's you. But the question is, can we just acknowledge, hey, that's not good enough? Let me continuously work on myself. That way, that way I can become better. That way I can become closer to my wife who always finds me so abrasive because whenever she does something wrong, I come down on her so hard and she just can't breathe. That's not a leader. In my own household, a leader would not act that way.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, a leader would show the proper amount of warmth that is needed in order to get her to move in the direction that I need her to move as the head of the household, as the dad, as the father, as the husband. There's a balance, there's a dichotomy. And it doesn't matter if you're talking to 2-year-old, your wife, your dad, it's all the same.
Just thinking right now. You got me deep in thought.
Yeah. Anyway, man, let's wrap this up. Hopefully, this gave you some value, guys. If you are watching Empowered Homefront and you're getting value, go ahead and share this. We're on a mission to help Americans not make the same mistakes we have made, and we just want to share this message. And if you feel as though somebody would connect with this message, please give it a share. That way, it gets out there. And God bless.